On the morning of February 27th, 1968, in a worn-out Harlem apartment, Frankie Lymon's uncle opened the bathroom door and froze. The boy who once set America on fire lay there, 25 years old, next to a heroin syringe, his eyes closed forever. Frankie Lymon, the first black teen idol, with the angelic voice of "Why Do Fools Fall in Love," once stood on dazzling stages, cheered by millions, but he died alone, penniless, betrayed by the music industry. Behind that stage smile were untold stories, whispers of thick envelopes from a scary man in Harlem, rumors of threats from mob boss Morris Levy, and questions about a heroin packet that appeared at just the right moment. What snuffed out Frankie's flame? Was it just addiction, or something darker? His story is a tragedy of talent and fame, where the spotlight always comes with shadows. Stick around as we trace Frankie's journey and uncover the truth behind his death. Chapter 1: A boy without a childhood and a deep emotional scar. At 10 years old, Frankie Lymon led white men to women in Harlem. He earned cash, got gifts, then went home to sing gospel with his parents. In a single day, he was both a child and an adult. That was Harlem in the 1950s. Noisy street corners, doo-wop harmonies mixing with cigarette smoke from bars, and distant police sirens. Born in 1942 in a cramped Washington Heights apartment, Frankie's father, Howard, drove a truck, and his mother, Jeanette, worked as a maid. Both sang in the gospel group Harlemaires, raising 5 kids on meager wages. A harsh life forced Frankie to grow up fast. He ran errands for a grocery store, bringing home money to help the family, never having a day to play like other kids. "I was an adult by 11, doing everything grown-ups do," Frankie once said, his voice heavy with bitterness. Music was his only escape. In the Harlemaire Juniors, Frankie's soprano voice rang out like a church bell. He sang on street corners, blending harmonies with young dreamers hoping to be stars. But Harlem wasn't just music. A neighbor recalled Frankie taking thick envelopes from scary men just to stay quiet. He never said who they were. His eyes, fearful but silent, still haunt those who saw them. Were those men the first shadows leading him astray? In 1954, at a talent show at Edward W. Stitt Junior High, 12-year-old Frankie watched the Coupe de Villes perform. When lead singer Herman Santiago couldn't hit a high note, Frankie jumped on stage, his voice exploding. He didn't just want to sing, he needed to. Standing off stage felt like losing his breath. That pleading look, everyone remembered, convinced the group to take him in. They became the Teenagers, the first step to stardom. But even with a microphone and a stage, Frankie couldn't escape Harlem. After shows, he returned to those same streets, where shadows waited, like a presence he couldn't shake. Frankie was a gifted boy, but Harlem carved deep scars into him. He carried big dreams, but also secrets he couldn't voice. Those thick envelopes, those fearful glances, were they signs of the tragedy to come? Who led a 10-year-old into the darkness and left him unable to find his way back? Chapter 2: A star at 13. But tragedy grew too. Frankie Lymon sang "Why Do Fools Fall in Love" at 13. He'd never been in love, but America believed he knew their hearts. In a small New York studio in 1955, cigarette smoke hung in the air. Musicians tapped rhythms on guitars, and Frankie stood in the middle, his too big suit swallowing his slight frame. His soprano voice rang out, clear as a church bell, making everyone in the room hold their breath. Within a year, Frankie and the Teenagers were a sensation. From Billboard charts to The Ed Sullivan Show, from movie theaters to the hearts of millions of teenage girls. The multiracial group, Frankie, Jimmy Merchant, and Sherman Garnes, were black. Joe Negroni and Herman Santiago were Puerto Rican. Broke barriers, paving the way for acts like the Jackson 5. Crowds roared, girls packed theaters, screaming Frankie's name as if he were their entire world. But fame wasn't all joy. In 1957, on the Big Beat, Frankie danced with a white girl. The crowd loved it, but Southern TV stations were furious. The show was canceled after 4 episodes, a slap in the face to the 15-year-old trying to fit into a world bigger than Harlem. Frankie wasn't a 13-year-old anymore. His voice was breaking. His body was growing. But fans and G Records wanted that angelic voice. No changes, no growing up. A stagehand recalled that after a show, Frankie wandered backstage, trembling in a corner, muttering, "I can't hear the voice in my head anymore." No one could explain it. He just sat there, eyes empty, like part of him was gone. Tensions grew within the group. Manager George Goldner pushed Frankie as a solo act, leaving the teenagers feeling abandoned. They'd been friends, singing on Harlem corners, but fame built a wall between them. A friend said Frankie started avoiding the group, as if afraid to face the truth that he was changing. In a dressing room after a show, he held a microphone, stared in the mirror, and whispered, "They want me to stay a kid, but I can't." The pressure to remain the cute boy was crushing him. Was this the first crack leading to tragedy? Or was something else, deep in the music industry's shadows, waiting to swallow him? Fame came fast, but it trapped Frankie in an invisible cage. He was America's first teen idol, but what was the cost of that spotlight? As the lights dimmed, was Frankie still a star, or just a boy trying to escape himself? Chapter 3. Love and Scandal deepened the tragedy. At 15, Frankie Lymon walked into bars like a man, but he still called his lovers Mama, as if his heart never learned how to love. Picture a Los Angeles night, dim lights, a beautiful nightclub dancer pinching Frankie's cheek, laughing, "Such a cute kid." Frankie shot back, voice bold, "You're not bad yourself, sweetheart." He was drawn to older women, calling them Mama or Sis to mask the scandal. But Frankie's love wasn't the sweet ballads he sang on stage. It was messy, painful, and full of secrets. His love life was chaos. In 1964, he married Elizabeth Waters, but the marriage wasn't legal. She hadn't divorced her first husband. They had a daughter, Francine, a name Frankie picked on a sunny morning. But 2 days later, the crib was empty. Frankie didn't sing for a week, sitting silently in his apartment, eyes lost. In 1965, he reportedly married Zola Taylor of the Platters in Mexico, but they called it a publicity stunt. In 1967, he married Emira Eagle, a teacher who brought some peace, but addiction pulled him away. One lover let him spend her money. One loved him through tears. One loved him with trust. But none could save Frankie from himself. A chilling detail, a reporter once met 2 different mamas of Frankie's in New York and Chicago, nearly exposing a secret he hid. A friend saw him burn a letter, then stare out a window, muttering, "If they knew, I'd be done." What was in that letter? A love note or something more dangerous? Elizabeth said in a 1997 trial, Frankie could charm God himself, hinting at his manipulative allure. But betrayal cut deep. While Elizabeth toured Japan, Frankie lived in her house, didn't pay bills, and it was foreclosed. Those emotional wounds piled up, plunging Frankie into deep loneliness. Love should have been a refuge, but for Frankie, it was a maze with no exit. A friend said Zola overheard him whisper about someone wanting to know his secret. What was it? A risky romance, or something tied to the shadows watching him? Did Frankie love to forget, or to keep others from asking what he was running from? Chapter 4. A star's complete collapse. What was left of Frankie? Picture a New York party, thick with cigarette smoke, musicians' laughter echoing in a dimly lit room. In the corner, a nightclub dancer named Candy. twice Frankie Lymon's age, slipped 15-year-old Frankie a heroin syringe. "Just a little try," she whispered, a deadly invitation. Who was Candy? Frankie started skin popping, shallow injections, but soon he was shooting straight into his veins, letting the poison flow. "I know it's bad, but I can't stop," he later confessed, voice trembling. By 1964, addiction consumed $75 a day, a fortune for a fading star. But the bigger tragedy was his voice. That angelic soprano, which once captivated a nation, began to crack. His voice broke, and the cute kid was gone, a friend recalled. When Frankie left the teenagers in 1957, he dreamed of a solo career. Reality was harsher. His 1960 single, Little Bitty Pretty One, limped to number 58. Morris Levy, head of Roulette Records, didn't nurture his changing voice. A musician Levy once sued said, "If Levy wanted you out of the business, you were gone." Fans turned away, calling him a one-hit wonder. Nightclubs shut their doors. Agents ignored him. Frankie knocked on old Harlem apartments, asking for a hit, not a handout. His eyes forgot who he'd been. One tooth missing, skin ashen. A friend said, Frankie was all confidence, but when he lost his voice, it was like losing his soul. In 1961, Frankie entered rehab at Manhattan General Hospital. He tried, but heroin was a shadow, always pulling him back. A friend said, Frankie wanted out, but someone always brought him drugs. Who was that someone? A chilling moment. In a studio one night, Frankie stared out a window, muttering, "Morris Levy won't let me go." A witness recalled the night before his death. Frankie whispering to a recorder, "Levy's always behind me." Those words, like a prophecy, sent chills. Levy, tied to the mob, was he controlling Frankie? Or was it the desperation of a young man trapped by addiction? He'd been a star, the world cheered, but now Frankie was a ghost. A neighbor said he'd sit on steps, staring into the distance, searching for his lost voice. The pressure of fame, the music industry's betrayal, and Harlem's temptations crushed him. Did heroin destroy Frankie? Or did someone pick the perfect moment to extinguish his spark? Chapter 5. Betrayed. The industry stole everything. Imagine Frankie Lymon, 20, sitting in Morris Levy's office at Roulette Records, dim light from a window hitting an old wooden desk. He stared at a paper, hesitated, then signed, selling the rights to Why Do Fools Fall in Love for $1,500. A studio worker said his eyes looked like he knew he was selling his soul. The song later earned millions, but Frankie got nothing. Levy, with mob ties, was known for ruthlessness. A Roulette office worker recalled, "I saw Levy tear up Frankie's copyright complaints. He said, he just needs to sing. I handle the rest." A musician Levy sued whispered, "If Levy wanted you gone, you were gone." The teenagers got no royalties either, losing a 1989 lawsuit due to statute limitations. Only Emira Eagle, Frankie's last wife, won a lawsuit, securing nearly $1 million. Frankie felt drained. "They lifted me up with one hand, then pushed me down with both," he told a friend, voice bitter, hands clenched like he was holding on to something lost. The music industry, which launched him to stardom, turned its back when he wasn't the cute kid anymore. George Goldner, his first manager, ditched the teenagers to focus on Frankie, splitting the group. A technician recalled, Frankie said if he spoke up, someone would disappear. It sounded like a joke then, but it left a chill. One afternoon in the studio, Frankie sat alone, staring at the microphone like it betrayed him. A friend said he once flipped over a stack of records, shouting, "They took everything, even my dreams." But only the empty room echoed back. Was this betrayal just industry greed, or an organized plot to crush Frankie? A neighbor saw a strange man in a long coat outside Frankie's apartment, just watching. Levy, with his cold smile and threats. Was he the center of this darkness? Frankie was a star America adored, but now just a pawn in a powerful game. Levy stole his song. Did he steal Frankie's life too? Chapter 6. Final Desperation, Frankie's Last Days. Frankie in a soldier's uniform, smiling awkwardly at his wedding to Emira Eagle. No one would guess this young man once drove America wild. In 1967, at Fort Gordon, Georgia, Frankie tried to stay clean, away from heroin. Emira, a teacher, brought rare moments of peace, like sunlight in a stormy life. But temptation was too strong. He went AWOL, singing in local bars, his voice rough from smoke and liquor. Discharged dishonorably, he returned to Harlem, dreaming of a comeback. Early 1968, staying at his grandmother's apartment, he signed with Big Apple Records. A friend said Frankie was clean for 6 months, but that night, someone left a heroin packet at the door. No note, just deadly silence. A New York Post article said Frankie looked tired but hopeful, talking about reclaiming fame. But a friend told Billboard his eyes were empty, like he'd given up. A close friend added, he said someone followed him on the subway, wearing a hat, silent, just staring. Frankie often sat on steps, gazing at Harlem streets, searching for the boy who sang on corners. The night before he died, he muttered, "I can't keep running." On February 27th, 1968, his uncle said, "I locked the medicine cabinet that day. I don't know how he got the heroin." Found lifeless in the bathroom beside a syringe and small heroin packet, Frankie died of an overdose at 25. A Quora post called it the lonely end of a brilliant star. A neighbor said Frankie once stared out a window, hands trembling, as if he knew someone was waiting outside. Who left that heroin? Was someone setting a trap just as he planned a comeback? Was his death an accident, or time to end all hope? Conclusion: a legacy and eternal mystery stand on a Harlem corner today, hearing "Why Do Fools Fall in Love" drift from a small cafe. That song, covered by Diana Ross, the Beach Boys, and over 30 artists, is Frankie Lymon's immortal legacy. He wasn't just America's first black teen idol. He paved the way for Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5, and countless boy bands. A Quora post noted, "Without Frankie, there might be no Jackson 5." He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993, the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in 2000, and got a Hollywood Walk of Fame star in 1994. The 1998 film, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, though controversial, brought his story to a new generation. But Frankie's legacy isn't just music. It's a painful lesson about fame's cost. A 13-year-old who set a nation ablaze was crushed by pressure to stay perfect, racial bias, and the music industry's exploitation. Addicted to heroin at 15, betrayed by those he trusted, Frankie is a symbol of talent destroyed by circumstance. His story reminds us to protect young artists from deadly pressures and temptations. 3 details haunt us. Morris Levy's threats, recorded by friends. The heroin packet appearing the day of his comeback recording. His final words, "I can't keep running." They're not proof, but they can't be ignored. A neighbor said, "I saw a stranger leave Frankie's place at 3 in the morning. The police never followed up." What really happened to Frankie? Was his death an accident, or was a hand behind it? Whispers of Harlem's scary man, Levy's threats, or that mysterious heroin packet? Clues to an unsolved plot? We may never know, but Frankie's story lingers, a brilliant talent, snuffed out too soon. Sometimes, a light shines so bright its own bearer can't find the way home. What do you think killed Frankie? Heroin, Hollywood, or a hidden hand? Share your thoughts below. Sometimes, the biggest clue comes from those listening.